Brisket is one of the hardest working muscles on the entire animal. It holds up nearly 60% of the cow's body weight every single day of its life. And that work, that relentless, constant effort, loads the muscle with something called collagen. So much of it that if you cook brisket fast, it's basically leather. But here's the thing that blew my mind when I first really understood it. The exact same collagen that makes brisket brutally tough is the very thing that, when you treat it right, dissolves into pure, silky gelatin and creates the most melt-in-your-mouth bite you've ever experienced. The secret isn't in spite of the collagen, it's because of it. Today, we are going deep on the science of brisket, not in a dry textbook way, in a way that's going to completely change how you cook it. We're talking about what collagen actually is, why time and temperature are the two variables that control everything, and I'm going to share the exact technique that fine dining kitchens use to get brisket so tender it barely holds its shape on the plate. And there's one detail about that technique, a specific window of temperature that almost nobody talks about, and it makes the difference between good brisket and transcendent brisket. Stick with me. So, let's start at the beginning. Collagen is a structural protein. Think of it like the scaffolding inside muscle tissue. It weaves through and around the muscle fibers, holding everything together. The more a muscle works, the more collagen it develops. And the brisket, two overlapping muscles, the flat and the point, that never stop moving, is absolutely loaded with it. We're talking about connective tissue running through almost every inch of that cut. Now, when you apply heat quickly, say you slice a brisket and pan-sear it like a steak, a couple of things happen fast. The muscle fibers contract and squeeze out moisture, and the collagen, it tightens. It becomes even more rigid. The result is a tough, chewy, dry piece of meat that makes you wonder why anyone bothers. And that's the trap most first-time brisket cooks fall into. They think brisket is a problem to be overcome. It's not. It's a puzzle to be solved. Here's where the science gets genuinely exciting. Collagen begins to break down, to dissolve, at around 160 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. But it doesn't just snap apart the moment it hits that temperature. It needs time at that temperature to fully convert. The scientific term is hydrolysis. The collagen's tight triple helix structure unravels, and the long protein chains absorb the surrounding moisture and transform into gelatin. And gelatin is liquid gold. It coats every muscle fiber. It creates that glossy, quivering, lip-coating richness that makes a proper brisket feel almost like it's melting before you even chew. This is why low and slow cooking is not just a preference, it's chemistry. You need the internal temperature of the brisket to reach and hold that conversion zone for long enough to let the transformation complete. Rushing it with high heat doesn't get you there faster. It gets the outside charred while the interior collagen never fully breaks down. You end up with a bark and a tough core. Now here's the detail I promised, the one almost nobody talks about. There's a phenomenon pitmasters call the stall. When you're smoking a brisket, somewhere between 150 and 170 degrees Fahrenheit, the internal temperature just stops climbing. It can sit there for hours. New cooks panic. They crank the heat, and that's exactly the wrong move. The stall is actually evaporative cooling. The moisture inside the brisket is evaporating from the surface at the same rate as the smoker is adding heat, so the temperature plateaus. The collagen conversion is still happening during the stall. The brisket is working. You just have to trust the process and let it ride. Pitmaster's tick: if you want to push through the stall without sacrificing your bark, wrap the brisket tightly in unlined butcher paper, not foil, when it hits that plateau. Butcher paper breathes just enough to let some moisture escape, so the bark stays firm and develops that deep mahogany crust, while the inside keeps converting collagen to gelatin. It's what the best barbecue joints in Texas have been doing for decades, and there's real science behind why it works better than the foil wrap. Let's talk about the fine dining approach for a moment, because this is where things get seriously interesting. High-end restaurants that put brisket on their menu aren't using a smoker most of the time. They're using a technique called sous vide, cooking the brisket vacuum-sealed in a water bath held at a precise temperature for an extended period. We're talking 155 to 165 degrees Fahrenheit for anywhere between 36 and 72 hours. Sounds extreme. The result is almost supernatural.
Because the temperature never fluctuates, the collagen converts completely and evenly throughout the entire cut. Every single bite, from the edge of the flat to the fattiest part of the point, is uniformly impossibly tender. But here's the trade-off, and this is something fine dining chefs will tell you openly. Sous vide brisket doesn't develop a smoke ring, and it doesn't have that deep charred bark on its own. So the technique becomes a combination. Sous vide for the conversion, followed by a hot sear or a quick blast in a 500-degree oven to build that crust and the Maillard reaction, the browning that creates hundreds of new flavor compounds that smell like everything you want a great brisket to smell like. It's the best of both worlds. Butcher's secret: when you're sourcing your brisket, look for the full packer cut, the whole brisket with both the flat and the point still attached, along with a thick fat cap. Don't let anyone trim that fat cap down below a 1/4 inch before cooking.
That fat is a slow basting system. As the brisket cooks low and slow, the fat renders gradually, bastes the meat from above, and adds another layer of richness on top of the gelatin you're building from within. Prime or choice grade will have better marbling through the point, and that intramuscular fat renders alongside the collagen for a result that's genuinely restaurant level at home. So let's bring this full circle, because I want you to leave with one clear mental model for brisket. Collagen is not your enemy. It's your ingredient. Your job as the cook is simply to create the conditions where collagen can do what it's designed to do when heat and time work together: unravel, hydrate, and become gelatin. Low temperature, long time, stable environment. Whether you're managing a smoker at 225 for 12 to 14 hours or running a sous vide bath for 2 days, you're doing the same thing. You're giving collagen the time it needs to complete its transformation. And when you pull that brisket, rest it. This is non-negotiable. At least 1 hour, loosely tented before you slice. The muscle fibers relax and reabsorb some of the gelatin that's moved to the surface. The temperature equalizes. You slice against the grain, always against the grain, which shortens the muscle fibers and makes every bite even more tender. And what you get is a cut of beef that has no business being that soft, that juicy, that rich. Except it does, because you understood the science and you worked with it. That is the real secret to brisket. Not a rub, not a wood type, not a special trick. It's time, temperature, and understanding what's actually happening inside that incredible cut of meat. Now, I want to know, have you ever cooked a brisket that completely blew you away, or one that completely let you down? Tell me what happened in the comments. I genuinely read every single one. If this kind of deep dive cooking science is what you're here for, hit subscribe and you won't miss a single video. Next time, we're getting into dry-aged beef, how controlled rot creates the most complex, nutty, umami-rich steak flavor on the planet. You won't want to miss that one.